skills are. So
no, literally, you're a whiz at this. You're a whiz.
pretty much Steven Spielberg.
Watch it out.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, right. Welcome back again. Last week we talked a lot about the upsides of quitting alcohol. For the most part, the conversation, I think, centered on the feeling of, renewed purpose, a feeling of pride. You feel good about yourself, and the sort of psychological benefits of that. It was quite a structured discussion, and I think we just thought, as a sort of follow on to that, we would try and have a bit more of a free flowing, free formed discussion on all kinds of benefits that may or may not be particularly obvious if you're thinking about, quitting alcohol. And, I think you made the point, last week, that if you are drinking on a fairly regular basis, which we both did, let's be, it's fair to say, it's really, really difficult to imagine a world without alcohol. And I suppose one of the things that would encourage you to take the leap will be, okay, so what are the upsides? What does it actually give you? And we did talk a lot actually about this feeling of purpose, and I made some notes actually around that as a follow-on. And I think I sort of waffled on a bit about this thing about a return to self. And I think what I was trying to say there was that, for me anyway, at least, drinking booze provided me with this sort of, what I thought at the time was like a kind of safe haven, like a lily pond, where I could just guarantee that I could sort of damp out all of the shit that I was dealing with during the week. And, for me, it was the stress of work, the stress of career, the stress of money, I guess the stresses of life. And what alcohol, I think, from a psychological perspective, because I've tried to analyze, what was it that really, kept you on that path, was the fact that I sort of always knew that Friday night wasn't very far away, or Wednesday night, as it happened to be very often. My drinking times were normally Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'd sort of, section those days off as the day where, that's the sort of, Wednesday's the middle of the week. That's a perfect excuse to open a bottle of wine. Friday's the weekend. So, anybody at the weekend drinks. And I always knew that I was never far away from that. And it was, maybe we can discuss this on another session, but I think
it's super important that, sorry to talk over you, but that's definitely a topic for a session, because I really, really love that topic, because it is one of the biggest lies that we tell ourselves when we drink, which is around when it's okay to drink. You make every excuse in the world to find a good reason to drink, and I think everybody does it, whether it be because it's Wednesday, or I've had a long day at work, or whatever, or it's the dog's fucking birthday, or you find those excuses. And more on that actually, which is one I really like, which I like to call boozer clock. So the boozer clock is, what time do you start drinking? Because there's this absolutely crazy, in my opinion, ideology that what time you start drinking kind of deciphers whether you have a problem with alcohol or not. So what do I mean by that? So many people I know will go, they'll talk about it, lots of people, and they'll say, well, I don't drink in the daytime, or I never have a drink until 6 o'clock. So that makes it fine. Do you know what I mean? It's like, okay, I don't have a drink until 6 o'clock, but I'll do 2 bottles of wine afterwards.
Yeah.
So this whole notion of time and day of the week and all that sort of stuff is, maybe this is a bit of a teaser for another session, but
All right.
yeah, super important point.
Let's do it. Brilliant. Okay. Well, let's put that in as a subject, because that is absolutely the case. So the point that I was just wanted to sort of round the point off, really, which is that when you are drinking, and we all have our reasons for why we do it. We think we're having a great time. It's habit. For me, there was definitely that element of it helped to just quieten the noise, actually. It's hard to imagine a life without it. And what actually happens is drink dampens life out. Drink suppresses life. But the things that you are perhaps concerned about, maybe you're running away from, maybe the things you want to just damp out, either it's as simple as just, I had a really bad day today, or it's more meaningful and perhaps more serious. Maybe it's work, relationship, finance issues, or whatever it is. By drinking, you actually make it worse. The alcohol gives you a temporary reprieve, but it delivers it back to you with interest when the hangover comes. The anxiety, alcohol, as part of the body's recovery process from alcohol, one of the things that it does is it fills your body with adrenaline and cortisol, the stress hormone.
Yep.
So you get this absolute sort of self-fulfilling, sort of freewheel of self-perpetuating behavior, where you do something to relieve the stress of a situation, and the thing that you're doing to relieve the stress of that situation increases the stress of that situation massively. And so when I stopped, the thing that was a real amazing kind of incredible sort of eye-opener and an awakening is the problems, and I think you mentioned this last week, the problems don't go away, but your ability to face them and deal with them and manage them increases in a way that is just unbelievable. I feel so much more, I feel proud of myself for the not drinking, but I feel more proud of myself for facing life in all of its sort of technicolor, sometimes glory, sometimes not so glory, and facing it with an honest soul, really, that I'm not trying to distort it or dampen it out. And it has, in, like we said last week, it's led to so many amazing other decisions to do with exercise, to do with lifestyle, to do with productivity, which I've seen in you as well. So we spent a lot of time talking about that, and I've just spent loads of time talking about it. But anything to add on that? Because what I also wanted to do is just talk to some of the sort of what might seem like fringe benefits, but are also really, really key, like sleep and, all of that sort of stuff. So anything to add on that, or does that?
Yeah. I think you couldn't have summed it up better. And actually, it's really nice because it leads me on to the topic, or one of the topics that I actually wrote down for today's, chat, and that is sleep. What you touched on there, and around being able to manage your emotions, your decisions, everything better. And I think that one thing that is so overlooked, and I certainly didn't really think about it or care about it when I was drinking, but when you do stop, if it's a decision you want to make, and if you decide to stop, you will only but notice it, and that is that your sleep is not only just so much better, but it then allows you to function and be, like a human being. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I think if you look like when you were a kid, or if you're watching this or listening to this and you have children, children sleep with uninterrupted pure sleep. They don't get up for a pee in the night. and I know that comes with age and things change, but they sleep well, and every day they get up and they function throughout the day well. And when you drink, there are so many effects that I guarantee anybody listening to this will have experienced. And the problem with booze, it's a diuretic, right? So it makes you piss. Let's cut to the chase. And obviously when you drink an amount of liquid which you wouldn't normally drink if you were a child or a normal person not drinking. Do you know what I mean? It is not normal for the body to ingest 4 pints of beer at 8 o'clock in the evening or whatever it might be. So, and it makes you wee, it makes you urinate. So, I have a friend of mine, and actually I stayed with him 2 weeks ago, and he gets up, he's my age, and he gets up 3 times a night at least to pee. And we were sleeping in the room next door. You can hear him pee. It's a lot of liquid. And he drinks every day. And he's not, I wouldn't say he's, necessarily a problem drinker. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't, but I would say he is, has an addictive relationship with alcohol because, he does drink every day. And I think that's an issue. But, he's not someone who rolls around drunk at all. That disturbs your sleep. That does, getting up 2 to 3 times a night for a pee when you're of an age where that's probably not normal. If you're in your 70s, 80s, I do believe that, your body changes. So that's a problem. That doesn't happen to me. It used to. It doesn't happen to me anymore. Just simple fact. The second thing is, which I think is something that you touched on, and you used a couple of scientific words that I cannot remember now, but I call it the rebound effect. So it's this effect to your body that basically it links to weight loss as well. Is alcohol, when you sleep, basically it deals with the alcohol first. So if you eat and you drink alcohol, your body deals with the breakdown of the alcohol first before the food intake. And what this does is it basically once it's completed at night, it often gives you a little boost of adrenaline. So this does 2 things. First thing is it wakes you up, and then with that adrenaline, it often gives you that feeling of a fast heart rate and almost anxiety, if you like. So I'm sure that anybody listening, and it's probably happened to you, and I know it used to happen to me, you get that 4 o'clock in the morning, fuck, I'm wide awake, I'm worried about things, I'm thinking about things, my heart's beating fast, I'm and of course your sleep is broken. You probably don't go into that phase of REM, not shiny happy people, but in the actual phase of dreaming, which is important in your sleep cycle. And I can just tell you now, it's just one of the benefits. We were talking, and this subject is what have you gained from giving up alcohol? And I cannot emphasize how well I sleep now, and how it completely transformed and transforms every day my life. I wake up every day and I am not tired. I am ready to go. And yes, there are some nights where I don't maybe sleep as well, or it takes me a little longer to get to sleep, or we've been out to our friends and we get home and it's 1 o'clock in the morning and I've got to get up at 7. It doesn't matter. I can deal with it because when I sleep, it's proper sleep.
Yeah. I mean, it's a huge one, and I think we should probably point out that the sort of sleep thing, I think everybody is affected differently. I've certainly read, when I did my research, over the years on this, there are those who have a severe physical alcohol addiction, and they actually report, certainly there's a period after quitting alcohol where their sleep is affected, but ultimately once, you know, one of the great things, and we haven't mentioned this at all actually, but one of the really cool things about giving alcohol up is that for the most part, unless you've really, really buggered yourself up, unless you've really, you will recover. Your organs recover. There's a full recovery available to you, you know. And this, I think, we're talking about people who drank like you and and I believe that 80% of the population drink pretty much like you and I. What I mean by that is it's a regular thing. They do it surely, regularly. And that's what I did. And some of us, when we're drinking on a Friday night, will have 2 or 3 glasses of wine. Some of us will have 2 bottles and some spirits and think that that's fine. It's just a different way of doing it. But we're talking about those kind of drinkers. And when you stop, and the sleep, aside from the science, mate, aside from that, and there's a really good, maybe I'll link to it if I can, if I've got the technology, I'll link to it on this. There's a brilliant, I think it's 2 hours long, a guy called Dr. Andrew Huberman, and he breaks down the science of what happens in your body when you drink alcohol and when you sleep. And it's fucking terrifying. It's fucking poison, you know, and it gets worse. There's the ethanol that goes into your body in the first place. Then your organs, your liver and your kidneys and everything within, they will break that alcohol down because they have to process it. The body can't just leave it in the body. There's suddenly the body goes, oh, fucking hell, they've done it again. They've put all this shit inside me, right? Thanks a lot. I'm going to have to deal with this now. So it processes it. And in processing it, like any, if you think of any waste processing, you know, scenario, there are byproducts. And and I can't remember what it's called, but there is a byproduct chemical which is even more poisonous than the ethanol. So that gets released into the body, right? So then the body has to mop all of that up and deal with all of that. And when it finally does it, it goes, oh, right, brilliant. Let's get everything going again. So it releases all of this adrenaline and you know, I think anybody that's drunk, we've all experienced the night terrors, you know, the night terrors where you just, the dark night of the soul, the problems just come flooding into your brain. And look, when you stop drinking, you will get that occasionally. You know, I think in the last 7 years since I haven't drunk, I can think to 2 or 3 times when I've just had something on my mind and it hits me in the middle of the night. But a couple of things happen. Number one, I've already slept brilliantly up to that point. Number two, I am much more able to deal with it. I'm not as stressed. I'm not as frightened, you know, that kind of thumping heart, which immediately makes you more scared than you need to be. And it's probably happened less than 5 times in the last 7 years, where I would say if you are drinking, it happens all the time. And the other part about the sleep thing is, like I say, never mind the science, dude. It's fucking amazing. The sleep. It's just, I go to bed at about 10 o'clock, right? And I read every night, which I never used to do when I was drinking, because you can't read when you're pissed, drunk, hammered, if you're from America, right? So I read at night, and 9 times out of 10, I fall fast asleep and I wake up in the morning and I feel completely refreshed. I'm not scared of the day. I don't get the anxiety. And from that position, you're able to make decisions and plans, which you had a really good phrase actually on one of the earlier calls, which I don't think we got. So I'm going to steal it and claim it as my own, even though I just told everybody it was yours. It was brilliant. You said old keys don't open new locks. And I thought that is such a great point. And by quitting drinking, you've got a new key. And that new key just unlocked this thing called sleep. And there's more and more and more evidence and literature and, you know, just the science to back this up, that health, well-being, mental, physical health is very much tied to how well you sleep.
100%. Full believer in that.
Yeah.
And I've seen it with friends, with family who, you know, you know, I think you made a really good point, area. We are talking about kind of problem drinkers, gray area drinkers here. You know, people who have a severe addiction to alcohol. You know, it's the route has to be medical first. But for those who are in our position, you know, even those who maybe just feel that, you know, they're drinking a bit too much. You know, that, you know, it's not overtaking their lives or anything, but just that, you know, they're a bit fed up of waking up every morning with a hangover, etc. Or not every morning, but, you know, the weekends, whatever it might be. You know, those sort of people that I've had conversations with these people about, you know, their sleep, and you know, they just don't want to hear it. You know, you don't want to hear it. You don't believe it's that. And they'll go, well, you know, I don't drink every night. So, and even on those nights, sometimes I don't sleep so well. It's because you're in a routine of not sleeping well, right? When you get into that, you know, habit of sleep, which is, you know, actually a human normal condition to be in, you know, you just, you can face anything. And I completely agree. You know, some days you know, you mentioned, like, you know, maybe 4 or 5 times over the last 7 years you've had difficulty sleeping. Yeah, it happens, right? It happens to us all. But the difference is you don't get that worry, you don't get that concern. You wake up in the morning and you go, I didn't sleep very well actually last night, and it is rare, but it does happen. But you know what? I'm still in the position to 100% face the day because I'm just a bit tired. That's all it is. You're not hungover. You're not anxious. You're not stressed. You're just a bit tired, and that's it. And your whole mental approach to the day is completely different. You know, we all worry about things. There's always something, you know. Could it be something at work? You know, it could be a wedding, you know, it could be something big occasion that's coming up. But honestly, your just ability to deal with everything is so much better. And I'm glad you stole the phrase, by the way, because it's a good one, and I think it's so true. You know, it's down to that. You know, if you change nothing, nothing changes. You know, people continue on and do the same thing, and they expect new things to happen. They expect doors to open, but they don't do anything to make that happen. And
yeah, it's yeah, and you just sort of touched on something else actually, and I this whole issue of drink and alcohol. There was a podcast that I listened to, a woman called Mel Robbins. Anybody who's listening to this will maybe have heard of her. My wife introduced me to her actually, but she's a really interesting. She's sort of characteristically very similar, I think, to, you know, a lot of us. She's got her own story. She went through a period where they had hard times. She talked about, you know, they didn't have any money, and she sort of changed her life. She still does drink, but she drinks in the way that, but it's something that's really bothering her. You can tell because she's done podcasts on it and she's spoken about it. And I think she drinks in the way that most of society does, whereby she uses alcohol. If she's had a tough day, it's her reward mechanism. Or I have a couple of drinks. You know, I've had a really tough day. In the US, the term for a sort of evening drink, whatever it is, whether it's wine, beer, they call it a cocktail, which is when I moved to the States, I was always confused by that, because they said, they would be like, oh, do you fancy a cocktail? And I would be like, what, you mean like a Manhattan or like a Sex on the Beach? Or, you know, I was thinking maybe just a Bud Light perhaps. But actually, it's kind of one of these weird, but quite a nice term actually. So you know, have a cocktail and you know, a glass of wine or a gin and tonic, vodka and tonic. And she discussed this routine where she will have, you know, a glass of wine, and then she thinks, well, that was quite nice, you know, let's just have, I'll have another glass of wine. Oh, this is, now I'm completely relaxed. Now the day that I just had has faded softly into the background, watching a bit of TV, and 9 times out of 10, she says she'd have maybe one more, right? So she'll have 3 glasses of wine. And it might be that that's what she's admitting to. Who knows? You know, we all know that when we drink and you go to the doctors and they say, how many units of alcohol do you drink in a week? That I certainly would, for my own case, I'd be like, oh yeah, about 12. And then I think 12, well, hang on a minute. If a glass of wine is 2, and you go, oh, I can't tell them that. So you dumb it down. So, drink, say you drink less than you actually do. But let's just say she had 3 glasses of wine. What then she does is she wakes up the following morning and she feels thirsty. She may have got up in the night for a pee, who knows? And she has a sort of period of kind of regret. Why did I have that other glass of wine? I didn't really need that other glass of wine. Why did I have to have the third one? And, then she'll go out, and by about lunchtime, she's probably over it. And then kind of rinse and repeat the route, this cycle that she discussed. She talks about this cycle, and she's been thinking about reevaluating her relationship with alcohol for a long time. Another mate of mine who, won't mention any names on this, but super nice guy, quite a sort of, I'd say a fairly structured, pragmatic human being. And we were talking about alcohol. I went out for a boys' night out the other day. I don't drink on those things anymore, and it's totally fine. It makes absolutely no difference, by the way. In fact, I'd say I think I have a better time than the people who are sort of struggling with the mental gymnastics of, should I have just 1 beer? Should I have 3? I've got work tomorrow. All the stress and the shit that you have to deal with when you drink. I don't have any of that. So we just go out, have a curry, have a laugh. It's brilliant, blah, blah, blah. But inevitably, when we're out with those lads, me not drinking comes up, and they say, oh, how long has it been now, mate? And how long have you? And this guy said, well, he said, I only drink weekends these days. I only drink, Friday, Saturday. That's the only times I drink. But if I'm being honest with you, he looks like he could probably drop a few pounds. So we'll come on to that in a second. He looks like he could probably lose a bit of weight. But it's like your point, mate. He's decided that probably Friday, Saturday, maybe Sunday lunchtime is the day that he drinks. And what happens on a Friday is he will drink a few glasses of wine, probably a bottle, maybe a couple of beers, which means he won't sleep very well because your body can't actually rest. It doesn't get normal, nourishing, replenishing, brain restoring, cell restoring sleep. So every weekend, he's a CEO, this guy. He's a chief exec of a business. He's got a highly pressured job. He's got kids, mortgage. So what he is doing is that he is robbing himself of this ability to use the weekends as a time to recharge those batteries, so that when Monday morning comes round, which for you and I, we're like, okay, it's Monday, great, new week. Yep. For him, it's going to be, oh, fucking hell, Monday. Like, and the older you get, it's impossible to avoid. So and funny enough, that leads me on to the other benefit, which is, let's face it, we were both a pair of fat fucks when we drank. I mean, there's no getting away from that. And the weight loss is, I mean, people are probably looking at this thinking, fucking hell, you must have been terrible, because look at the state of you now. If they're saying, like in the before and after, they're going, if this is the after, shit, I hate to see the before, but the before was pretty bad. So, but yeah, weight loss is mad.
It's the biggest. Well, no, is it the biggest? It's right up there with one of the best benefits of giving up alcohol, in my opinion, and from my experience. Before I get onto that subject, one thing I just wanted to, because I really liked your last talk about Monday mornings and about drinking to relax and to block out, or to I decompress from work, all that sort of stuff. So sometimes my question would be, why do you want to switch off? Why do you want to forget it? Because what are you running away from? Maybe actually, and I find this, is that on the weekend, thinking about your Monday morning is not a bad thing. Maybe doing a bit of prep. I'm not saying you have to open your laptop and do some work. I'm saying, you know, sometimes looking at just you checking your diary and going, right, okay, yeah, I've got that, that, and that. Okay, great. Am I ready? You know, have I thought about it? Do I have those questions in my mind that I want to ask? Depends what your job is, depends what you do. But I find it quite funny, and I used to do it. You know, I was criminal of it. But you know, do we really need to be blocking out or looking to forget or switching off completely?
Just
I
on
don't know.
that, sorry to
Just
interrupt,
throwing
mate.
out there.
Just sorry to cut. We should do another discussion on this, because I think you are right. But I think for me, just talking about my personal experience, I started drinking initially because it was really good fun. It's what everybody did, and I thought it was amazing, and
Same here.
we
No
passed.
one sets out to have a problem with alcohol, let's be honest.
Right. So I started out drinking, and it was brilliant, and I loved it, and it was amazing. Where my drinking became uncomfortable for me was absolutely linked to the stress that I was feeling during that period. I developed a fear of life. Okay, just admit it. I became scared of the responsibility that I had as a father, as a husband, that I was that I felt a financial obligation during that period. I started a business. I've started a few businesses, but I had a business that was really struggling in the early days. I'd lost all the money I ever had in the house. I had a story. I had a reason, and there was a cycle. And I believe that for a lot of people, the reason that alcohol moves from being something that they enjoy, that's fun and is recreational, to something which is taking away more than it gives, there is a psychological reason for it. There's also a chemical reason. Alcohol affects people's brains differently. The way that alcohol hits my brain and affects my brain is different to how it affects somebody who doesn't.
It's an addictive substance as well, it's known fact. So
yeah, but my point earlier was that of course, alcohol lies to you. It fucking lies. And the reality is that the problems that I thought alcohol was helping me with, in fact, alcohol was making a million times worse. And what I was robbing myself of, and what I think a lot of people are, and I just, if this does nothing else, but one person finds this reality and realizes that this is the truth, when I stopped and I faced those problems with a clean brain and an unmuddled soul, if you like, not affected by alcohol, they shrank. There's a great book, a guy called Philip Stutz talks about, it's called The Tools. And one of the things he talks about is that the more you hide from pain, the bigger, or fear, the bigger it gets. The more you embrace it, the smaller it shrinks. If you shy away and try to hide, it just gets bigger and bigger and harder to deal with. But if you confront it, and look, we're not psychologists, there may be a point at which you do need to talk to somebody and maybe get help on that. But my point is that from my experience, just from my own experience, when I took alcohol out of the picture, I became a fucking god when it came to dealing with shit. I still get worried, I still get anxiety, but not in the same way. And I dealt with it, and it gave me the confidence to do other things. So that's another subject. We should probably
definitely
talk about that one. But let's go back to the weight loss, because you were a fat fuck, no doubt about
it. We both were. We were both overweight. There's no doubt about it. So
I struggled to do my shoes up when I was at my worst. I was I don't know what I sort of 230 pounds, I think, at one stage, and like just bending over to do your shoelaces up, I had to sort of wedge myself into the stairs just so I could get that far down to do it. So yeah, officially.
Yeah. It is that you're right. I would say the same thing. And I think another thing was, I remember one time I sat down to put my socks on, and I was at someone's house and they had a mirror, like a mirrored wardrobe. And I looked to my left and I was like, fucking hell, like literally Mr. Stave Puff from Ghostbusters that was looking back at me. And I was like, how is that possible? And this is a topic I think we could probably go on for a long time on, but I'll, again, maybe we can add to it next week. But so many things about weight loss, so many things. It is the physical, like when I say physical, the visible bonus of giving up drinking. And okay, it's to different degrees of certain people. There are people I know who are sober, who are overweight, but I think that's because of other reasons, and we can go into that. But for both you and I, certainly for me, and do you know what's funny is you're talking in pounds because you used to live in America, and I'm having to talk in kilos because I live in Paris. So I was 95 kilos. I am now 74 to 75 kilos. That's 20 kilos. Go and pick up 20 kilos. Go to the gym, pick up a barbell, but some bags of sugar, bags of sugar. That's 20 of them. Unbelievable, and that's what's funny is that I now physically look like I did in terms of, not obviously, I'm 47 now, but in terms of my body size and shape, I look like I did when I was like 2021. It's that dramatic. And people actually were, quite worried, and they were like, oh my God, you've lost a huge amount of weight. But it didn't worry me because I wasn't really trying to lose the weight. You know what I mean? It's just the proof to me that it's your body going, you've been shoving all these calories into your body, empty calories, right? A bottle of wine is 600 calories. Look, I actually did the maths. If you're drinking a bottle of wine every night, that's 4,200 calories a week, right? To burn that off, you'd have to be running a 42-mile run or a 9-hour swim a week to burn those sort of calories off. 4,200 additional calories. What is it? Is it 2,200 for a man a day? That's an extra 2 days, an extra 2 days of eating. And that's just one bottle of wine a night. And I bet you there's a lot of people drinking one bottle of wine a night. Remove that from the equation. It's not difficult to see where the weight loss goes.
Yeah, I'd like just quickly on that as well, and from me observing you, also one of the things you do now is you running. I know is really important to you. You run.
It's a huge part of my life now. Yeah.
It's and I think there's all kinds of psychological upsides and benefits attached to that, which maybe again is another conversation. But I think that I talk about these chain reactions. The sort of one great decision to stop drinking leads to another incredible decisions, and you get this compound benefit. You get a compound benefit in all sorts. If you have a terrible night's sleep but you're not drinking, you've got the compound benefit of the past 2 or 3 years of great sleep. It doesn't affect you so much. And the decision to stop drinking led to weight loss, and I believe that has allowed you to lean into exercise and running in a way that you can't when you're nearly 100 kilos, or whatever in pounds. And then you start to see the benefits of running and how that makes you feel.
Yeah.
And that leads to other decisions about work and career and relationship. And you just get this like
domino effect. Yeah.
Whereas the opposite is true, funnily enough, when you drink, because you hide from that and it just gets worse. Things get delayed. Finances aren't looked at. I mean, a little thing, but I sorted all my like a lot of people in the UK, at least. In the US, it's possibly a bit more straightforward with the 401k system. And I don't know what it's like in France, but here in the UK, you get given pensions pretty much every time you get a job. You get
yeah.
So as a result, a lot of people have ended up with a load of. I've got like 5 different pensions, and
likewise.
You know what? I had no idea how much was in them. They didn't have my correct address. And just this week, I got on top of all of that. It allows you to get on top of shit when you don't drink, when you don't have that in the way that makes you feel better. The psychological sense of that. So anyway, so the weight loss. It's amazing. It's incredible, and I've seen it in you, mate. And it's the running and all of that. I mean, probably get back to those majorette socks that you wear when you run, the DVT. But that we'll talk about
I'm
that
literally wearing a pair of, like, seriously, you'd be so disappointed.
yeah. Yeah.
But
Right. So just on, so unless there's anything more to say, that I wanted to talk about the sort of anxiety, the sadness, the blues. Certainly I used to get, on a Sunday particularly, I used to get quite sort of bluesy. I used to get a bit down and a bit sort of, a bit sad and a bit kind of, and I just don't get any of that. And I think sometimes I used to drink wine I used to, my thing on a Sunday was cook the Sunday dinner and open a bottle of wine while I was cooking the dinner. And, it seemed like a lovely thing to do. And you'd have a big dinner and a load of wine and, wake up on Monday morning and be absolutely, like, completely on the back foot. Has that, have you noticed that? Is that something that you've seen improvement in?
definitely, definitely. I know you really suffered with it, and I don't think I suffered with it quite as much as you did. But I think maybe because I wasn't running my own business. I didn't have quite the sort of the financial responsibilities of you, which I think is a fair thing to say. So but I did feel those feelings with anxiety but the reason is because I would leave things to the last minute. I wouldn't be prepared. I'd accept mediocrity, and that would cause me to worry. I would turn up to meetings, and sometimes I wouldn't have even thought about the meeting or planned and this would be with a customer, and I'd be trying to make it up, trying to sort of bullshit, and it was, and that would obviously, before going in, I'd be really, really stressed about it, and those sort of worries and anxiety were regular occurrences. I know some people suffer, I think, much more than I do, and I have to be honest there. Certainly, it was an issue. But what I do know is that those that do suffer with it's all that would be, I'm not a doctor, so I can't say that, but I really believe that it is linked to alcohol, and it is linked to what we spoke about at the beginning of this conversation, which is sleep, and all those things just allow you to be better. And there's nothing wrong with being anxious. There are times where it's the body's normal effect. It's I think you've talked to great actors, they will still say, before going on stage at the theatre in front of a packed out, Shaftesbury Avenue, they feel nerves, they feel anxiety, because it's the body's, way of kind of giving you that adrenaline to sort of, but that's healthy anxiety, that's healthy worry, and that's right. I think it allows you sometimes to do your best when you're about to go and present something. You're nervous, you're unsure, but when you're sober straight and you've planned, it allows you to go in and be impactful, but it brings back control. And
I think just listening to you talk, actually, that was really interesting, because I hadn't really thought about it. And I think we talked about this previously, that when you stop drinking, it allows you to be really honest. I'm not sure I would have admitted before that I suffered from anxiety or concern or worry. That I think I used bravado and the sort of macho bullshit, whereas having stopped drinking and I think reconnected with the person that I really am, that without alcohol I can do that. There's nothing in the way, there's nothing stopping me from connecting with the person that I am. And I think that I've talked about this previously, it's certainly something that's important to me. I think that a lot of people, myself included, want to sort of find their authentic self, and I'm very happy now to be honest and to admit those vulnerabilities and those sort of previous, because by not drinking, I suppose in some ways I've found the regained or reclaimed the true essence and the sense of who I am. We all have things we're good at, things that we're not great at. And I think actually, now that I think about it, I think one of the upsides of abstaining from alcohol is it's allowed me to become reintroduced to that sort of version of myself. I guess the true person. There was a thing, I sort of watched a seminar this week, and it was sort of okay, but they were talking about, potential and all the rest of it. And I think they used this term of, there's a future version of you, and we sort of can't wait for you to be introduced. It was a bit cheesy, I suppose, but I have been. I've already got there. I've got to be the person now that I want to be. I do the things that I want to do, and I think by taking alcohol away, it's done that. And I know that's my last point. Actually, I think it's allowed me to create a life now that I'm really proud of. I think it's a wholesome life. You and I having these conversations is sort of mad, really. It's great. It
is.
Yeah.
And if it can help anyone else, that's the whole point to it. I think coming out to wrap up time, I think your points are so interesting, and I think anyone listening, again, what does it give me, and what you just touched on is so true. It allows you to be the true representation of your own self, and I think so many people use alcohol to try and be someone different, and it's not actually possible. That makes sense. I did this thing, but I'm introducing it to a load of colleagues, which is, you will know it, which is Gallup's Clifton Strengths training. And pretty straightforward. You answer a host of questions. You have 20 seconds to answer each question, and it's preferences. So strongly represents me, neutral doesn't represent me, that sort of thing. And what I love about it is at the end you get 34 strengths, but what it concentrates on is your top 5. So, so many people in life concentrate on their weaknesses. Oh, what am I bad at? What do I need to improve? Why am I bad at it? And all that. Well, what if you actually look at what you're good at and make sure that, you're improving what you're good at? And I really like it. So, and it tells you something about you, and it's the real you, and it's not the false you. And I would, recommend people to do that and say, okay, so, if I can tell you mine: positivity, individualization, related, consistency, and communication. If you take those 5 and work on making those better, because they are the real you, if you know what I mean. So that's what I quite like about it. I'm drifting off a bit here, but anyway. Just on that point, I think you're absolutely right. It quitting drinking allows you to be the real you. There's no second agenda. There's no bullshit, anxiety, drunken talk, whatever it might be. It's just you're you all the time.
Okay, brilliant. Well, that's a great. Let's I think that was a good chat, actually, and maybe we should do there. I think we found a brilliant topic as well for the next one, which is the excuses that we come up with to drink. Booze o'clock. That would be a really good conversation to have next. So just in summary then, for this one, I think we talked about that feeling of purpose. That I wrote down incredible joy. I almost want to write a blog, I think, on the unbridled joy of not drinking. That just the sort of level of happiness and sense of fulfillment. I just can't even begin to. I just don't think I even have the words all the time to even just explain what a massive difference it makes. I think, we talked about how drink suppresses and dampens life out. And you said, ask yourself why you're doing that. And would it be better to actually, draw that curtain back and see clearly what life has to offer you and get on with it. And we talked about the fact that, a lot of people will use alcohol to kind of take them to a different place, a safe place, but actually the sort of counter effect of alcohol is that it makes you 10 times worse. Talked a lot about sleep, and I think that's something that everybody should really look at. I think it's the cornerstone of life, actually. I think that, great for sleeping, great, your mental health, your physical health, all the rest of it. There's the link to the Andrew Huberman thing, which I'll share. Talk about anxiety, sadness, and the dark night of the soul, and how by taking alcohol away, that's all removed, and just this sort of ability to create a better life. So yeah, that was
and the weight loss topic. I think that's
yeah.
what we should definitely talk more about. I've got more to say on that, and yeah, but nicely wrapped up. Spot on.
All right, I'll stop recording. Let me do that. Are you sure you want to stop recording?